All right, so it looks like we have just about everyone, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today for the webinar on the Healthy Lifestyles, Healthy School Meals Grant. This webinar will provide an overview of the grant and the application process. So I'm Melissa Grudy from the National PTA Programs and Partnerships Department, and we also do have Heather Parker, our Senior Manager in Health and Safety, here with us. Heather and I will be two of your primary contacts throughout this grant application process. And lastly, we'd like to thank Pew Charitable Trust for making this grant opportunity possible. Before we go any further, I want to review the functionality of GoToWebinar. Your active participation is important throughout the session, but right now I have everyone on mute to avoid background noises that may distract you from listening to the webinar. Throughout the presentation, we will be managing the chat functionality. You can enter questions and comments in the question box throughout the presentation, and we'll have the Q&A session at the end to answer those. So here's how you raise your hand. And there's the question box for you. So a little overview of school meals. Each day, around 31.7 million students are served lunch through their school lunch service. And of these 31.7 million students, 21.5 are receiving these lunches at free or reduced cost. School lunches are an important meal for students because they provide around 1/3 of the students' daily nutrient needs. Unfortunately, the health status of our nation's children is problematic. According to the Institute of Medicine, children's diets are of poor nutritional quality. They include too much saturated fat and salt, and too few fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Fortunately, in recent years, nutrition standards in the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program have improved. Standards include having to serve more fruits and vegetables, serving more whole grains rather than refined grains, reducing sodium content, and having to meet specific calorie needs. The nutrition standards have laid the foundation towards improved school meals, but there's still room for improvement. So the overall goal of the grant is to improve school meals through a collaborative partnership with the school administration and the food service providers. The success of this grant is dependent on the partnership you will form. This grant brings together different viewpoints and knowledge about school meals, which allows for a comprehensive approach. So let's start with a little overview. The grant will award 25 local PTAs with $2,000. PTAs that represent K through 12 are eligible to apply for the Healthy Lifestyles, Healthy School Meals grant. And we're also strongly encouraging local PTAs that represent Title I schools to apply for this. Additionally, the grant deadline is April 4th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and then grant awardees will be announced in May of 2016. So like we explained earlier, the goal of the grant is to improve school meals through a key collaborative partnership. However, the area of improvement will differ for each school depending on the challenges and needs each school is facing. But some areas of improvement include nutritious quality of the meals, the cafeteria environment, the capacity of the food service providers, or the overall meal quality. So for nutritious quality of the school meals, how are they comparing to the national nutrition standards? Is there more than one option for fruits and vegetables? Are the meals made from scratch using less prepackaged foods or ingredients? For the cafeteria environment, is the cafeteria welcoming? Are healthy foods promoted in the cafeteria? And are healthy behaviors also promoted? For the food service providers' capacity, do they have the equipment and training necessary to be as effective as possible? And for the overall meal quality, what perceptions do students and parents have about school meals? What do the food service providers think of the meal quality? Is there high participation in the meals served? So now we're going to discuss the outline of the grant. The formal grant implementation will occur between May of 2016 to April of 2017. However, this grant will target sustainable interventions so that the school meals should be impacted after the formal closure of the grant. Upon receiving the grant awardees will complete the Healthy Alliance for a Healthier Generation Nutrition Assessment Tool. This assessment module will help you identify areas in need of improvement in your school meals. Additionally, you will complete additional assessment tools that are targeted towards your school. The National PTA will provide samples and templates for these, and the Healthy School Meals Toolkit we will be releasing in May. But some examples include an observational assessment of students' behaviors in the cafeteria, or a survey assessment that can be sent home to parents to understand their perceptions along with their kids' perceptions about school meals. The assessment tools will be used to generate your action plan. The action plan will be completed in a collaborative fashion between you, the local PTA, the food service team, and the school principal. The action plan will demonstrate the areas of improvement which you plan to address and explain how you are going to address these needs. You will then submit the action plan to the national PTA. So this will also serve as a support checkpoint so we can go over your action plan together, and will also serve as a checkpoint for receiving the second portion of the grant funding. Action plan implementation can start in August, but is suggested to start no later than January of 2017. So now on to applying for the grant to improve your school meals. So here's the basic outline of the grant application. The first portion of the grant application will gather PTA and school information. And then the narrative section is the bulk of the application and the section that's worth the most points. This section includes the current school information, school meal information, success vision, grant agreement terms, school leader agreement form, and the W-9 form. We will go over these in just a second. So this is the Healthy School Meals grant homepage on the National PTA website, which can be found at the link provided below at www.pta.org/schoolmeals. This homepage will provide you with more information about the grant and will also provide you with the supplemental resources. This is also where you can access the grant application through the Apply Now button there in the middle. I do want to draw your attention to the bottom where you can find the grant application resources. So the school leader agreement form is necessary to be printed out and signed by your food service manager, director, and school principal. The other documents are supplementary resources that will provide direction and ease while going through the application process. So let's quickly go through these to get acquainted with them. The Healthy School Meals Grant Overview explains a little more about the grant, provides the agreement terms, and provides the selection criteria. This is a great document to reference when talking with your food service manager, director, and school principal to give a little more detail about the grant. This is a successful application steps document. This will provide you with a little more direction and also the steps you need to complete before sitting down and completing the application. So congratulations on completing step 1 by reviewing the grant overview and attending this informational webinar. Step 2 is where you will partner with your school. First, you will want to set up a meeting with your school's principal to discuss the grant opportunity with him or her. And once he or she has agreed that this grant opportunity is something that the school would like to pursue, you will get his or her signed commitment on the school leader agreement form. This is provided on the school meals homepage. This is also a good time to discuss what the principal would like to see improved with school meals. This information will be included in one of your short answer questions. After getting the signed commitment from your school principal, you want to meet with the food service manager or director to explain the grant opportunity and to confirm their commitment. After getting their signed commitment, you want to go through the food service provider conversations document, which we will discuss here in a second. For step 3, this is the application preparation step. Here you're going to want to gather all the information so you can sit down with ease and apply for this grant. You will need the PTA contact information, school contact information, student demographic information, information about school meals described in the grant overview, a scan of the agreement form signed by your school principal and food service manager, and your PTA's W-9 form. So just to note, the short answer section in the narrative will take the most time of the application, but nonetheless, it will not take too long because you will already have obtained the information during your meetings with the school principal and the food service provider. But we have heard in the past that PTAs who type out their answers to the short answer questions ahead of time and then just transfer them over into the application have an easier time completing the application. But regardless, I do want to remind you that once you open the application, you have to complete it in one sitting or all of your work will be lost. So for the grant application, there's information that only your food service provider or manager will know. And so this is important to sit down with them early on to gather this information. The food service conversation starter document will provide guidance for what to ask when speaking with your food service manager or director. The first page of the document includes the straightforward questions such as, what is the % average daily student participation in your school lunch program of enrolled students at the school? You will probably have to leave a copy of this document with your food service manager or director in order to give them enough time to gather the meal statistics information. So make sure you give yourself enough time to do this before the application deadline. The second page includes suggested questions to better understand the picture of your school meals. These will help you prepare for the short answer questions in the narrative section of the application. Please feel free to ask questions that are specific to your school. This is not meant to be an interview, but really it's supposed to be a dialogue between you and the food service provider. So the school leader agreement form is the document that you will upload to the application that shows a signed commitment from your school principal, food service manager, and director. This shows the school leaders what is needed from them in order to ensure the success of this grant. So after completing the initial information and PTA information, you will get into the heart of the application. First, you will gather the ethnicity breakdown by percentage for your school. You can get this information from your principal during your commitment meeting or by going to greatschools.org and searching for your school. Next, the school meal information section will be completed with the information you collected from the food service manager or director. These questions include the questions from page 1 of the food service provider conversation starter handout, that include the yes or no questions or questions asking for specific percentage information. So the short answer section is only comprised of 2 short answer questions. The first short answer question provides us with a snapshot of your school and school meals. We want to understand the strengths and weaknesses of your school meals. The strengths are important because these are the areas that can be built on, and the weaknesses and needs of your schools are going to give you an idea of where your intervention could be geared. It is important to understand what the food service providers feel their challenges are when trying to serve healthy and enjoyable meals. The questions asked during your meeting with the food service provider will help you frame your responses for this question. So we also do encourage you to go have lunch with your kids and purchase the meal served that day. Take note of the cafeteria environment. How much time do students have to eat? Is it a positive environment that promotes healthy food? Are there vending machines that are providing junk food? This is also the area of the application where you can provide us with any other additional information that you think is important for us to know. So for a brief example, say Park Ridge Elementary School has strengths that include high participation in the school lunch program. They're meeting the nutrition standards for the daily lunch item, and the food service team has discussed that their training and equipment needs are met. But the school is also facing weaknesses. The cafeteria environment does not promote healthy behaviors, and the students' perceptions of the school meals are not the best. So you'd provide a little more detail about each item, particularly the weaknesses, as these are the areas that you're going to address in the next section. The success vision is the second short answer question, and this is where you want to hear, or we want to hear, what you are hoping to achieve with the Healthy School Meals Grant. If you've applied to previous grants with National PTA in the past, this is going to be a little different because we're not asking for a specific action plan or activity that you'd implement. Here, you want to take the information gathered in your conversations with the food service provider and the school principal to provide a joint success vision. So from our previous example, we identified the need to improve the cafeteria environment and improve students' perceptions of the food. So for the cafeteria environment, we can think of little changes that go a long way. Your vision may be to include fruit sold at the point of checkout, having low-fat white milk shown first in the cafeteria line so kids grab that first, painting healthy foods and healthy behaviors on the cafeteria walls, advocating for more lunchtime so kids have time to enjoy their meals, or advocating for lunch after recess so students are less anxious and can consume more of their lunch. For the students' perceptions, you're going to have to really brainstorm with your food service team, but maybe it's just an ingrained perception, or maybe the meals are in need of a little revamping. For their perceptions and for the meal quality, maybe the school could adopt a recipe competition once or twice a month where students submit their recipes to the food service team to be featured on the menu the next month. Each month's winning recipe could then be scaled up by the help of the math class. This way, there's more involvement in the process and the students will feel a sense of responsibility. So another small switch is to improve the cafeteria environment is to highlight healthy foods with attractive signs or naming them in creative names. And then for the meal quality, this will take a little more creativity and pooling of the community resources. But maybe you can work with the food service team to distinguish which entrees students are liking and which ones they are not liking. From here, maybe you're just going to ditch the ones that they aren't liking, or maybe you're going to try to improve upon those. So there are a lot of great resources that have taken typical school lunches and have revamped these into healthier and tastier meals. And we are going to provide some of these resources in our Healthy School Meals Toolkit coming out in May. But then also additional resources that you could use for this was maybe partnering with the high school and having their cooking class investigate how to give these recipes a great makeover. Or possibly there's a PTA superstar that's a great cook that would love to give a crack at it. So the success vision should also demonstrate that you, the local PTA, the food service provider, and the school principal are thinking sustainably. So we want to create long-term improvements for your school meals so that sustained improvements will come for periods of time for more students to come. And I do want to note that any of the examples you give in your success vision aren't set in stone, and these are just going to give us an example of what you guys are thinking as a team. You're going to have more direction after you complete your assessment tools that we identified a little bit earlier in the webinar. And the last areas of selection, the application, are the agreement terms, school leader agreement form, and the W-9 form. For the agreement terms, this will be a simple check yes or no box, and these are the areas, and these are the agreement terms listed on the grant overview PDF. The school leader agreement form is what we previously saw. This will be used to demonstrate the commitment from your food service manager, director, and school principal. And lastly, you'll have to submit your W-9 form, and this just ensures us that you're eligible to receive grant funding. So what are we looking for in an applicant? Because the agreement terms, school leader agreement form, and the W-9 form are automatic points as long as you upload them to the application, you will primarily be assessed on the school information and success visions. So for the school information section, a successful applicant will be someone who can clearly demonstrate the current picture of their school meals. So someone who briefly discusses the strengths of school meals and then dives into the challenges and needs their school is facing. We would suggest picking a few larger needs or challenges and providing some examples to support these while keeping it brief. The success vision is where we want to understand the vision that you, the local PTA, the food service director, manager, and the school principal have in mind. As we previously discussed in examples, your success vision should start with the larger big picture outcome you are hoping to achieve, and then can narrow in on a few examples. Remember, we do not expect you to necessarily follow through with these visions because your intervention will be largely based on your assessment, which will not be generated at this point. We just want to really get a feeling for what you guys are thinking again. And we do not suggest to run on about the specifics because the application only allows for 250 words, so you do have to be succinct and to the point. Great, so thank you for listening through the Healthy School Meals webinar presentation. I'm now going to open up the floor to questions. So we have a question, how do we get to the application? So you can get to the application through the pta.org/schoolmeals page website, www.pta.org/schoolmeals. And so on here, it's going to be that green apply now in the middle. And so this will take you to the actual application, which is housed at Question Pro. So just go to that page and click on the link and it'll bring you right there. And we also do have an overview of all the questions in the Question Pro document in our School Meals Grant application. And this is also housed under the supplemental resources on that School Meals page. And so this is just for reference so that you guys can kind of see it all in one PDF printed out view. However, you do have to submit it online, so I wouldn't suggest filling this out and trying to send it to us. So we do have another question. Are there a lot of applications in at this time? So we are starting to slowly receive the applications. As you can see, it is a little more front heavy because you do have to sit down and talk to your food service provider and the school principal. So I think people are getting those meetings done right now. But really, you guys do have a great opportunity for getting this, for getting awarded this grant. But I do want to remind you that the grant deadline is here in 2 weeks. So it's quickly approaching. All right, well, it looks like we are about slowing down the Q&A session. I will hang out for a little bit longer in case you guys are still typing out your questions. But for anyone else that's trying to sign off, I do want to thank you for joining us today on this webinar. And please feel free to email us with any additional questions at programs@pta.org. And this contact information is also provided on the school meals page, which can be found at www.pta.org/schoolmeals. Thank you, everyone.